So I've been riding on these Hunt 35 carbon gravel disc X-Wide wheels for about 500 miles now, and if you've been following my other recent videos, then you know how much I've been raving about them. Still, I thought it was about time to post up a full review and inform you of all the things that I like and dislike about them, as well as how they're holding up after 500 miles of some pretty serious abuse. Now, if this is your first time here, then thanks for dropping in. This channel features a mix of product reviews, technical how-tos, and some pretty nerdy deep dives into the world of cycling, all filtered through an extra average cyclist with a technical background. If you like this type of content, then hitting the subscribe button is the best way to let me know and to make sure you don't miss out on future videos like this. Well, I've said it a bunch of times already, and those of you who've seen some of my past videos are probably sick of hearing it, but I'm a big proponent of spending money where it counts when upgrading a bike. And new wheels, while certainly not the cheapest upgrade, in my opinion, have a bigger effect on the ride characteristics of the bike than any other modification you can make, which is why I opted for this set of carbon wheels from Hunt for my 2021 Specialized Diverge Sport Carbon, which came with heavy wheels that weren't very stiff. Now, if you landed on this video, it's likely that you've already been doing some shopping, and perhaps you know the company, but in summary, Hunt Wheels is a smallish, sort of boutique wheel company based in the UK, specializing in offering high-performing wheels at price points aimed at us everyday cyclists who don't necessarily have multiple thousands of dollars to drop on a new set of wheels. Also, as of April 2020, they have a US-based headquarters in Boulder, Colorado, making themselves even more accessible to us cyclists in the US. And they seem to be rapidly growing as they make a name for themselves in the cycling industry. And no, this is not a sponsored video, and I'm in no way affiliated with Hunt. I just really like their products. Okay, so back to the wheels. These are one of Hunt's several offerings for a gravel-oriented carbon disc brake wheel set, and these 700C diameter wheels are 35mm deep with an external width of 30mm and a reasonably wide internal width of 23mm, supposedly optimized for tires in the 40 to 45mm range. Although you'd likely reach an upper limit on tire width due to frame constraints before you found a tire that was truly too wide for this rim. Now on the flip side, due to the width of the rim bed, there is actually a lower limit, as this rim is not suited for tires any narrower than 28mm. So these may not work for the die-hard roadies out there who are still married to the idea of skinny tires being faster, which, as the science tells us, is simply not true. Nonetheless, I've been riding both 38mm and 43mm tires on these wheels with no issues whatsoever. Now for some perspective, there's also a shallower 30mm depth option, as well as their brand new 42mm Aero gravel wheel set, which I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around, as it seems to be a bit of an oxymoron. But hey, it's also pretty clear that gravel racing is now an established discipline, which means racers are undoubtedly going to bring that roadie mentality to the sport and try and eke out every marginal gain possible. For me, I opted for the 35mm depth, partly because at the time of purchase, this was their flagship model, as the 42s weren't yet available. Although given the choice, I probably would still prefer the 35s, mostly because I don't want this bike to scream, "Hey, look at me, I'm so aero." Also, the 30mm depth would probably have been fine, except for the fact that the internal width on those is only 20mm, which doesn't sound like a big difference when compared to the 23mm internal width of these 35s, but it actually is a pretty big consideration, as a tire width should be paired appropriately to the rim width. In other words, you don't want to run super wide tires on narrow rims, and these 23mm inner diameter rims are optimized for tires in the 40 to 45mm range, which is my preferred width. Okay, so there's some background on the company and why I chose these particular wheels. Now, I don't want to just regurgitate the specs from the website, but this is a review, so I should at least mention a few key highlights that I think are the defining features of these wheels before I jump in and address how they ride. And by the way, some of this information is also scattered throughout my initial setup video here and down in the description below, so you can check that out if you get a chance. Okay, so for starters, these wheels are claimed to weigh 1,548 grams, which is remarkably light for a wheel of these dimensions, which also have 28 spoke count front and rear. On my scale, these wheels weighed in at 1,593 grams for a difference of 45 grams from the claimed weight, and that difference is likely attributed to the pre-installed rim tape and perhaps the disc rotor lock rings, so not really a big deal at all. Now, as I already mentioned, the depth is 35mm, external width is 30mm, and the internal width is 23mm, and all these numbers checked out when I measured with the calipers. Now the hubs are rebranded Novatec, which is a criticism for some, but with the 5 degrees of engagement on the Rapid Engage free hub, the smooth rolling Japanese EZO bearings, and the interchangeable end caps, which allow you to run these wheels on virtually any frame with any axle standard, I have really nothing bad to say about the hubs at all. They're still as smooth as the day I got them, and they seem like they'll be pretty reliable for the long haul. Now in the box, you also get a few extra spokes, 6-bolt disc rotor adapters, valve stems, and some bonus stickers. Setup of these wheels was actually remarkably smooth, as the H-Lock rim bed is optimized for ease of tubeless tire installation. I managed to set up my Panaracer Gravel King slicks in 38mm with the standard floor pump completely dry with virtually no issues. Then when I got my Gravel King SKs, which are notoriously challenging to set up, it took a couple of tries with a boost pump to get the bead set, but after a couple of tries they sealed up with no issues, and they've been fine ever since. Now one thing that people seem to be obsessed with is the free hub sound of the Hunt wheels. Some say it's obnoxiously too loud, likening the sound to a swarm of angry bees, while others love the free hub sound and associate it with precision engineering. Now personally, I thought it would be obnoxious, but I've actually gotten used to the sound, and it doesn't really bother me at all. Anyways, rather than give you my opinion, let's just have a listen and you can decide for yourself. It's pretty good, right? If you really don't like the hub sound, you can always lightly grease the pawls in the free hub to cut down on some of the noise. Anyways, what I'm sure you're really interested in though is how do they actually ride? Well, man, and I'm getting really tired of hearing myself say this, but these wheels are amazing. I have never experienced such a transformative change in any bike that I've owned than when making the switch to these wheels. They're light for their dimensions, which you can truly feel when climbing and accelerating, and they're super stiff, so you get that sense of direct power transfer as if all the energy you're putting in is being directly translated to forward motion. On top of that, and perhaps somewhat paradoxically, the ride feel is great as small bumps and high frequency chatter are absorbed by the plush tubeless tires. Now I've said it before, but it seems like these two properties should fight each other. Stiff wheels paired with big squishy tires. But instead they complement each other as you get a fast, efficient wheel with significant road damping characteristics, and it's just great. Now as far as aerodynamic benefits, sure there's probably some benefit in having the 35mm depth when running slick tires out on the open road, but I'm not going to claim that the aero benefits are a game changer. I'm well aware that the aerodynamic benefits are exponentially proportional to the rider's velocity, and with an average speed of 15 to 20 miles an hour on flat roads on a good day, I'm definitely not claiming that the aero benefits are anything but marginal for me. Plus, I don't race or even ride with other people very often. I don't wear aero kit, and I spend most of my time sitting up and riding on the hoods or in the dirt where rolling resistance becomes a bigger factor. So all of this to say, there's really no sense in buying these wheels for the advertised aerodynamic gains. Instead, you should consider getting these wheels if you value a light, stiff wheel that can take some serious abuse. I mean, these things are strong. I've had wheels in the past that I felt I've had to baby just to make sure I didn't stress them too much, and that's just not a fun thing to have to do while riding. If you think about it, your bike shouldn't limit how hard you can ride, and with these wheels, I'm never thinking about being delicate when navigating steep, chunky stuff. And to be perfectly honest, since getting this bike, I've been more concerned about damaging the intricate Specialized FutureShock headset than messing up these carbon wheels. But that's a topic for another video. Actually, this video to be precise, if you want to check this one out. Anyways, as tough as they are, there is a claimed maximum weight of 264 pounds on these wheels, so if you are approaching that limit or plan to ride with lots of bikepacking or touring gear, then there are other even beefier, higher spoke count options that you might want to consider. For me, I weigh about 155 pounds and don't load the bike up with anything more than a couple of water bottles, a seat pack, a frame bag, and occasionally a handlebar bag, so total weight hasn't been an issue for me. And even if you are teetering on that 264-pound limit, the advice is simply to check on the wheels more frequently for signs of damage. And if you really stop to think about it, 264 pounds is an oddly specific weight limit, so I'm fairly certain that the true safe limit is probably much higher, and the engineering group at Hunt likely imposed a safety factor, which is very common practice. With regard to performance, these wheels perform great out on the road. There's no doubt about that. Fast, stiff, and light. Basically everything I want in a wheel. Now what I think happens in the world of gravel wheels, and really gravel bikes and components in general, is that the focus is shifted away from pure aerodynamic performance and placed more on the balance between performance and durability. As with most things in the world of this new gravel segment, there's a need to provide strength without sacrificing other metrics like weight and speed. Now to that end, I think Hunt have really nailed it with these wheels as they strike a perfect balance between pure performance and long-term durability. These wheels still look new, and they're still true after some pretty serious abuse, at least by my standards. I'm pretty certain that I'll find the limits of my skill before I find the limits of these wheels, which is very comforting. So, do I have any dislikes? Not really. Perhaps the price at $1,000 US. This was basically my upper limit on my wheel budget, but I did a lot of research and Hunt just offers a really good all-around package for the money. Now, some may criticize the company for going too heavy on the marketing and citing the rebranding of the Novatec hubs as a fault. Now, these may be rebranded Novatec hubs, but they're performing really well. And compared to my old wheels with DT Swiss 350 hubs, I actually prefer these Hunt hubs with the Rapid Engage Free hub for its fast engagement and adaptability to other axle standards. Now, of course, the counter argument is always that you can build your own wheel set for less, or that you can get a cheaper set direct from China via companies like Yoleo, Far Sports, or Light Bicycle, which have come a really long way in the past decade. Now for the record, I've only had good experience with the better-known Chinese direct-to-consumer brands, but lately I'm also valuing an accessible customer support experience more and more, and Hunt is very accessible, and have always responded quickly to my many inquiries about their products. Alright, so final thoughts. Once again, I'm always a big proponent of spending money where it counts on a bike. And even though these wheels cost a third of the bike's cost, I've got no regrets whatsoever, as they really liven up the bike's handling and make it feel faster and more responsive. They've been super durable so far, and I have no indication that I'll ever find the limits of these wheels. I also value the customer support from the company, and when it comes down to it, I'm willing to pay a premium for it. All in all, it's a well-rounded wheel set with virtually no shortcomings and can definitely hang with wheel sets in a much higher price bracket. Now for what it's worth, Road.cc rated this wheel set a perfect 10 out of 10, which, as I'm given to understand, is pretty rare for them. Like me, they also cited no apparent flaws and also wrote a raving review. Alright, so I think that's all I really have to say about these wheels. If you're on the fence about them, just do it. You won't regret it. And if you have a minute, you can check out my initial setup video on these wheels here, or you can browse some additional videos in this playlist right here on my 2021 Specialized Diverge Sport Carbon, which is the bike that these wheels are mounted to. Alright, so that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for sticking around, and thanks for subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.